they're not ready to sacrifice this to become a part of Russia as the matter of some compromises or the matter of implementation of some demands on the Russian part. So
Yeah.
Ukrainians are really desperate to see that this nightmare would end, but they're not ready to sacrifice. They're not ready for the peace by all means.
Let's turn to the conflict in Ukraine, because there's been a whirlwind of diplomacy this week and last weekend as delegates from America, Ukraine, Russia and Europe look to nail down details of a proposed peace plan. However, speaking on Wednesday, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said it was premature to say a deal was imminent. Ukraine's President Zelensky is reported to be keen to visit Donald Trump at his Mar-a-Lago home in Florida to sign some sort of deal, possibly even disturbing the American president's plans for Thanksgiving this weekend. More complication was added when US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff was caught on tape allegedly advising a Russian official on how to appeal to the US president. So after a week of intense negotiations, where are we exactly in terms of any peace deal for Ukraine? Let's speak to Bohdan Yarmenko, a Ukrainian MP for President Zelensky's Servant of the People Party. Welcome to Times at One. How do people of Ukraine feel about this revised plan since the intervention of the Europeans at the weekend?
Yes, hello. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure being with you to discuss this very important issue,
Yes.
not just for all of us in Ukraine. Well, if we would be speaking about the mood here in Ukraine, of course, people, first of all, are tired of war. It's those sleepless nights that interrupted with the blasts or the missiles or those rockets, so on, so on, so on. Of course, they're tiring people. We're losing a lot of our friends. And it looks like endless. And of course, the people would love to see that that there will be some end to this war. At the same time, the Ukrainians, according to the opinion polls, Ukrainians are not ready to sacrifice a couple of things that they consider important for themselves. First of all, their sovereignty. And by this, of course, for politics, sovereignty means territorial integrity and some very definite things. But for people, it means their way of living. And they're not ready to sacrifice this to become a part of Russia as the matter of some compromises or the matter of implementation of some demands on the Russian part. So Ukrainians are really desperate to see that this nightmare would end, but they're not ready to sacrifice. They're not ready for the peace by all means. So,
no, I mean, not at any price, basically. I mean,
yes, not at any price, definitely. So speaking about the new wave of diplomacy that we are observing, it's misleading because, it looks like that it's kind of another very crucial game of the Russian special services.
Right.
We don't see any evidences that the Russian Federation is preparing for the ceasefire. It's quite simple story. If you're looking for peace, you could reach the ceasefire agreement first and then negotiate for some time all other reasons and all other conditions for the larger deal. The Russians are continuing to bombard our cities. They continue their attempts to destroy our electricity grids and electricity production in the country. So we're living already for a couple of months under the situation that there are shortages of electricity. From 10 to 12 hours, so on. They continue their attacks and sometimes senseless attacks because they're using too many people to achieve some miserable results to advance for 100 meters. So everything is basically continuing. So there are no any indications of Russia being prepared for something.
Can I give you an indication that's just come in that President Putin has been speaking in Kyrgyzstan and says Russia is ready for a serious discussion and that the Trump plan can be used as a basis for agreement. What's your reaction to that?
That's we hearing for some 4 years. And it should be that's just the game of the world. So Russia is for the peace deal if it will be the capitulation of Ukraine. So they're ready to accept our surrender at any moment, should we be ready to sign the capitulation? That's kind of peace deal that Russian Federation is interested to discuss, nothing else.
Right. I mean, there are two areas when we were talking about this earlier this week. One is the territorial one, and the other are security guarantees for Ukraine if, God forbid, Russia were to ever invade again. Are those part of this revised plan?
Well, first of all, we don't know the provisions of the document or the text of the document the US, EU, and Ukraine are discussing right now. So it's very difficult for me to discuss this issue. But of course, we are fighting for 4 years. We lost a lot of soldiers, a lot of civilians. We lost a lot of friends, relatives, so on, so on, so on. And we don't understand why we should sacrifice another part of our territory and what it would bring to us. So just to reach some ceasefire agreement in order to be ruled by Russians, no, this is not the result that we are looking for. That's why, yes, we really we don't want Russia to use the ceasefire or some peace agreement just to strengthen themselves, to prepare better for another invasion, or to regroup their troops and to start again. So yes, that's why the issue of their security guarantees is very important for Ukrainians, yes. And it's also psychologically important issue for Ukrainians because we already we've been there. So yes. After we basically gave up our third largest in the world nuclear arsenal, we've been provided with some guarantees, and 20 years after, you see where we are. So we defended ourselves without the weapons that would never allow anyone to attack us. So that's why, yes, the security guarantees, it's something Ukrainians are all of us, we became the experts on the issue because we don't want this to repeat again. No,
well, that's understandable. Bohdan Yarmenko, thank you very much for talking to us, Ukrainian MP in Volodymyr Zelensky's party.
Have a new deadline for a deal?
No, I don't have a deadline. You know what the deadline for me is? When it's over. And I think everybody's tired of fighting at this moment. They're losing too many people.
Have you heard?
Well, we're having
Zelensky to come visit you.
We're having good. I don't know. He would like to come, but I think we should get a deal done first. We're having good talks. We started with Russia. We're having some talks with Russia. Ukraine is doing well. I think they're pretty happy about it. They'd like to see it end. And we won't know for a little while, but we're making progress. Well, that was just a map. All that was is a map. That was not a plan. It was a concept. And from there, they've taken each one of the 28 points, and then you got down to 22 points. A lot of them were solved, and actually very favorably solved. So we'll see what happens.
Do you think that Ukraine was being asked to give too much land back to Russia? I know at one point you said they shouldn't have to give any back.
It's really up. Look, the way it's going, if you look, it's just moving in one direction. So eventually that's land that over the next couple of months might be gotten by Russia anyway. So do you want to fight and lose another 50, 60,000 people? Or do you want to do something now? In some cases, the land is going in the other direction. So they're negotiating, they're trying to get it done. You want to have a border? You can't have a border that goes through a highway or a border that goes through the middle of a town. So that doesn't work. So it's a long, complicated process. And very sad because so many people are being killed.
What's the next step?
They're going to keep talking. They're talking to Russia now. Steve Witkoff is going over, maybe with Jared. I'm not sure about Jared going, but he's involved in the process. Smart guy, and they're going to be meeting with President Putin, I believe, next week in Moscow.
Next week in Moscow?
I think so, yes.
What kinds of concessions?
This war could go on for years, and Russia's got a lot more people, got a lot more soldiers, you know. So I think if Ukraine can make a deal, it's a good thing. I think it's great for both. Frankly, I think it's great for both. But Ukraine's got it's much smaller. It's a much smaller group of people. They've lost a lot of people. Russia's lost a lot of people, but Russia has a much bigger pool of people.
Mr. President.